Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, may I request everyone to please put their mobile phones on silent mode or flight mode so that we have an uninterrupted evening. Thank you. On behalf of the India International Center, I welcome everyone to this evening's talk on Trump's challenge to the global order. It is my immense privilege to extend a warm welcome to the eminent personalities on the stage. Our speaker for this evening's lecture is Professor Xuetong, Distinguished Professor at Tsinghua University, Beijing, China. Our chair is Ambassador Saran, President IIC. And our final speaker is Shri K.N. Srivastava, Director IIC. I would also like to welcome Life Trustee of the IIC, Shri N.N. Vora, Life Trustee of the IIC, Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath, esteemed trustees of the IIC, and many distinguished guests. Today's talk can be viewed in the context of the shifting world order. Trump 1.0 shifted the globalization order from the post-Cold War scenario to the present counter-globalization order, and his second term is accelerating this trend. Economically, this trend manifests as the fragmentation of global markets, politically as non-compliance with human rights norms, and in terms of security as increasing military violation of sovereignty. While Europe, the Middle East, and Africa are regions with ongoing military conflicts, what does China-US competition in East Asia mean for the world at large, and India in particular, is a question this lecture will offer insights into. We are greatly honored to have Professor Xuetong here today to address our audience. Professor Yan's accomplishments are extremely well known, but allow me to present a brief summary. Professor Xuetong is a distinguished professor at Tsinghua University, Beijing, China, and the Honorary President of the Institute of International Relations, Tsinghua University. He is widely recognized as the founder of the international relations theory of moral realism. From 2012 to 2023, Professor Yan served as Secretary General of the World Peace Forum, the first high-level, non-governmental international security forum initiated in China, where he played a pivotal role in facilitating global dialogue on peace and security. Prior to that, he served as Editor-in-Chief of the Chinese Journal of International Politics. Professor Yan earned his PhD in political science from the University of California, Berkeley. Throughout his impactful career, he has authored numerous works that have influenced academic debates in international relations. From 2014 to 2019, he was the only Chinese political science scholar included in Elsevier's most cited Chinese researchers. His notable books in English include Ancient Chinese Thought, Modern Chinese Power, and Leadership and the Rise of Great Powers, both published by Princeton University Press. His most recent co-edited volume, The Essence of Interstate Leadership, Debating Moral Realism, was published by Bristol University Press. May I now call upon Ambassador Saran, President IIC, to deliver his opening remarks.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to this very special talk that we are having this evening. I would like to welcome in our midst all our very distinguished life trustees. Mr. Vora, Mrs. Vora is also present here this evening, and we have other members of our board who are present. So very warm welcome to all of you. I see a very large number of my own colleagues, also from what is called the China Mafia in the Indian Foreign Service. So welcome to all of you as well. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome Professor Xuetong, who's a very old friend because we have been, engaging with each other for several years. Professor Xuetong pioneered a very important series of conferences, that is the World Peace Forum, which is held every year in Beijing. And I think it started in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And it has been an annual feature, convening an international conference with worldwide participation and very, very high-level participation. And I have been privileged to attend some of those forums during the last few years. But more than that, I have always found my engagement with Professor Yan very educative, also particularly in terms of trying to understand China, trying to understand China's foreign policy. It is difficult to find a better teacher than him. So it is really a signal pleasure for me to invite you to New Delhi and to our India International Center. I have already shown you something of our center. This is one of those very unique spaces in our country, which is a forum for, like the World Peace Forum, a forum for debate, a forum for discussion, discourses, and having somebody like you come and speak to us is a very rare occasion for us. So thank you very much once again for coming. Without any further ado, may I now request Professor Yan to make his presentation. He will speak for about 30-35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. And then after that, he and I will have a brief conversation. And time permitting, we will also have some question and answers from the audience. So without further ado, Professor Yan, you have the floor.
First, I want to express my gratefulness to President Saran and also IIC arranged this very valuable opportunity for me to exchange views with your distinguished guests about the international order. And actually, the title was assigned by President Shyam. So I just do my homework. This will finish the assignment. So the title is Trump's Challenge to the Global Order. I will say that nowadays, whenever you go, when you're talking about international relations, there are two things. First is Trump. Second is AI. Can you imagine that? How powerful Trump? One person, right? Even have equal power as AI. Wow, this is a symbol of the age. So Trump already, at the beginning, we heard that he reversed the order of globalization to the order of counter-globalization. So today, I want to discuss about how that happened. So international order, that means recently I published a book under the title, the reflection of these of the global order. That's when the word global order has make a U-turn. And how to make this happen? First, just now, the IC people has introduced my theory about moral realism. This theory analyzes international relationship from the perspective of leadership. So here we try to understand the change of the global order, how it's changed by the new leadership. Trump said G2 it's caused a big fuss in the world. So here I give you a small question to answer by yourself before I tell you my answer. When Trump said G2 after the summit with the Chinese national leaders, what's your interpretation about that phrase? It means China and the US provide joint leadership for the world? Or it means the competition between China and the US based on the bipolarity? I don't think Trump has a clear definition for the term G2. And the world did a lot of interpretations and why Trump said the term G2. Actually, G plus a number is a phenomenon after the Cold War. During the Cold War, no one used G2 to describe the relationship between the Soviet Union and the US. Why? Because the term of G2, the G plus a number, started from G7, right? After the Cold War, and 7 industrialized countries told the world, we organize an economic club, provide a leadership for the world. This leadership based on the 7 countries, their economic and military capability. Then from then on, we get used to this kind of phrase. G7, G20, now we heard of G0. So no matter what, G plus a number means leadership, right? G20 means 20 countries leading the world. Actually, when Trump said G2, some people concerned, hey, they suspected, do China and the US want to jointly dominate the world? Actually, I think now people realize that that's impossible. The relationship between US and the China is a competition, not a cooperation. So how can they provide a joint leadership? If the US and the Soviet Union can make a G2, how can China and US make G2 today? Then then people give the second interpretation about the term G2. What do you mean G2? G2 means bipolarity. That means actually current situation, if in Trump, I mean the term used by Trump, means that these 2 countries and actually have a global influence. So here, I back to the term called by European scholars G0. G0 means no global leadership. Just now at the board room, we discussed about whether the new global order will be leader-based order or leaderless-based order. That's my personal view. I think in the coming decade, the global order will based on no leadership. That's why now you heard both China, India, and Russia, and many countries, and discuss about the multilateralism. The multilateralism means that we have to have several countries work together to provide a kind of a leadership to shape the global order. That means any single country has the resources, capability, even the will to provide a leadership, a global leadership for the world. So now let's leave aside the will, no matter how ambitious they are. The question is what resources they have for provide a unilateral leadership. After the Cold War, US account for largest share of the global GDP. And the US becomes the only superpower. So that's possible for US to provide leadership for the globalization and talking about the soft power, talking about the universal norms. But now, my understanding, we cannot expect that thing happen in 10 years. Then you see that G0 order in digital age. This is, for me, I think this is very important. Now, one thing is talking about the trend, means that people talking about a global leadership. Do we have a leadership, or we don't have global leadership? We have good leadership, global leadership, or we have bad leadership. Then the AI is digital. AI is not only changing our life, AI also change international relations. Now people, or at least the IR scholars, get used to the term geopolitics. Whenever they analyze the international relations, always try to look at the issue from geopolitical perspective. Geopolitics means you look at this issue on Earth. You look at the issue based on the geography. Actually, digital technology create a new space. It's called cyberspace. This cyberspace is not natural. It's created by human being, by ourselves. It's different from the natural space or the geospace created by God. There's two different spaces. Now the digital technology not only intensified the competition between the major powers in geospace, actually they shaped the core of the competition from the geospace to where? To cyberspace. So in the future, the major powers relationship will be defined gradually by what? By their relationship in the cyberspace, not only geospace. Early period by both geo relations and the cyber relations. But gradually, that's my view. And in the not very long future, within 2 decades, and then people will define the strategic relationship according to their relationship in the cyberspace. Okay, I think all of you remember that before Trump came to power, your leader signed a joint statement with the Biden administration. In that joint statement, about 20 or 20 some items, 2/3 of them talking about digital technology relations between US and India. And one sentence is very, very shocking to me. They said that the strategic relationship between the US and the Indian defined by technology relations. That's very clear, right? If you help me to improve my technology, you're my partner. If you continue prevent my technology improvement, you are my enemy. This will not be only bilateral relationship between the US and India, it will be guiding the bilateral relationship between all major powers. Okay, question. Do you think China and the US, in terms of technology, these two guys are competitors or partners? It's very clear. So if in cyberspace, if in terms of technology, China and the US is a competitor, I don't think China and the US can able to provide a G2 leadership. And then no country can provide a unilateral leadership. So very possibly we're going to see a G0, no global leadership. Now the question is come to us. How the world to reshape the global order without leadership. That's a very possible situation we are going to face. So order in the space and becomes more and more important than the order in natural space. I do not mean the order in the natural space, geospace is not important. At this moment, at least they are equally important. We can see the war in the Ukraine. If we only compare the capability between the NATO and Russia, and their military capability on the territory of the Ukraine, Russia definitely has a superiority, huge superiority over the NATO on this small part of the land. But actually the war is fighting in both geospace and cyberspace. And NATO directly joined the war, but only in the cyberspace. So now it becomes a balance between these two sides, right? So this case clearly illustrated the importance of the cyberspace and the strategic relationship in cyberspace. Okay. Now we move to the next line. Is that at the beginning we're talking about the globalization order. Turn to the counter-globalization order. What's the difference? The globalization order means the countries develop more and more integration, economic integration, cultural integration, political integration, security integration, more and more integrations, right? But now the counter-globalization means, and there are more and more segmentation. The global market is no longer united as one. Economically, the typical achievement of globalization is the transfer from the GATT to WTO. WTO means establish the global market. But now you see the market cut it to pieces. By what? By de-risking and decoupling policies adopted by the governments. And then here we find that why people and dislike this globalization. I think everywhere same. Because of globalization and simultaneously and intensified polarization between the rich and what? And the middle class. This time, the polarization, the problem is not between the rich and the poor, but between the rich and the middle class. That's why you find that the populism is not developed or emerged from the developing country, but from the Europe. Europe, 80%, maybe 90% of population are middle class. They're unhappy with this rich family. The gap increased so fast. The rich people, the unit used for calculating their wealth is what? It's a billion. For ordinary people, the unit used for calculating wealth, and generally speaking, is 1,000 or 10,000. Even the upper middle class could be million, billion. This is not a small gap. You use a different unit to calculate your wealth. How can you make the middle class happy? That's impossible. So during the globalization, it's called the marketization. Now the market is fragmented. Politically, you find that the government adopted what? Protectionism policy. Protect their market and ask people to consume our products, and so that we can offer more jobs for the people, and we can make the local or indigenous enterprises make money first. So they no longer concern, hey, wait a minute, this is inefficient. Foreign investment is more efficient in terms of generating wealth. But then the government said, the question is not how much wealth we can generate. The question is what's the right way to distribute the wealth? If we do not distribute the wealth well and cause the social turmoil, no matter how fast the wealth grows, it's meaningless. We need social stability. So nowadays you find that now the government adopt a protectionist policy and make the market and split it. Okay. And when we use the term of order, and usually in IR, usually refer what? Stability. It refers stability, usually measured by the number of the wars and military conflicts. For instance, in this room, we have order. It's very quiet. Everyone even come late, they're looking for seats, and like this. Do not disturb others. This is an order, right? Okay. What means disorder? Two guys are fighting in this room. So no one said that Ukraine is in order. No one said that. Right? So now for international order, this term refers to what? Refers to the state of the stability. Well, you have order, or we have order. But the order doesn't mean fairness. The order doesn't mean justice. For the order, it doesn't mean good. We have all kinds of orders. We have a prison order. That's stable. No one like it for prisoners. We have an order in the bazaar, and it's not that stable, but most people like it to buy things there, the bargaining and the loudly, they enjoy it. We have the university order, people like it. Okay, they're free, they can challenge the professor, and still they have order. And we have a military order, and the soldiers are obeying to their officers. Well, very few people like that. Maybe military people like it, but for the civilians, we don't like the military order. So you have a stable international order. It doesn't mean that order is just. So order has its normative features. Now, the whole world is talking about not whether we could stabilize the relationship, stabilize the order. People actually talking what kind of order we are able to shape up. That's the real thing. Even Trump disturbed the order very much, but very few people scared or suspect Trump will kick out large scale war. He attacked 7 countries last year, but each of them only lasted less than a week. Right? A few days. He did not want to do a big war. Very recently, he wants to attack Iran again, but everyone knows that that's just a very limited attack. It won't be a large-scale war. So Trump's policy disturb the order. Actually, it's not disturb the stability that much. It disturb the what? Disturb the feature, the normative characteristics of the existing order, the globalization. He made this order of globalization to what? To a counter-globalization. There's 2 kinds of order. There are still orders. They have their own stabilities, but their feature different. Globalization, people feel, hey, globalization, I have much more freedom. Internationally, hey, I can hold a passport to travel everywhere. But now you find that becomes less free. You travel abroad, right? Not only becomes difficult to go to the US, the border control, the internationally. And you find that the more and more requirement for visa is the more and more difficult to get a visa. This is a universal phenomenon. So it's not only change, it's not Trump's disturbance to the global order. That's my view. It's not the stability. It's about the normative character of this global order. So what the Cold War order and based on nationalism. We have a lot of independence movement and wars, right? And And after Cold War, we have labor order based on laborism, have the free market economy and the human rights over the sovereignty, this kind of concept. And then now the counter-globalization based on what? That's my view. Very different from a lot of IR scholars. Many people said that nationalism is coming back. Now the order is based on a new nationalism. My view is that it's not based on nationalism. It's based on populism. What's the difference between populism and nationalism? Nationalism is that, okay, our nation is a green nation. We should be rich, modernized, and better than others. So nationalism will encourage the people go abroad to learn from others, to have more contact with others, and then we catch up, surpass them. That's nationalism. Populism is the opposite. Wait a minute. Don't have any contact with foreign countries. Anything foreign is a threat. Close our border, don't have any contact with them. Cut off. Reduce economic cooperation and control the technicians have meetings and stop the cultural exchange program and don't let the foreign ideas of festivals, mentalities influence our tradition. This is populism. Nationalism open the border. They want to catch up. They want to become stronger. They want to become stronger than others. Populism, opposite. I do not care whether you're strong or weaker than me. I just only care. I don't want you to have any impact on me. I want to isolate from you. So what we call it? Xenophobia. Right? Nationalism never talking about xenophobia. But now when we're talking about populism, they're always talking about xenophobia. It's a fear of anything foreign. So that's why this kind of ideology drive the trend of counter-globalization. Okay. Now, what's the Trump's impact on this global order? And we have already we talked about structural order and normative order. And certainly Trump has some impact on the structural order. And in what way? That's my view. And in China, in India, in most countries, in Europe, most people don't like Trump. But for some Chinese, and including me, we think on the one hand, Trump caused a lot of trouble on us and increased tariff on Chinese products and cut off our share in the American market and squeeze out the Chinese investment in the US. We lost a lot of money. That's true. On the other hand, Trump undermines the US more than any country. I ask you, tell me, any major powers suffers more than American people from Trump's administration. In the last 250 years, intellectuals, scientists, elites, including the sports elites, they try to go to the US and to develop themselves, looking for a career, and they regard it as a shelter, political shelter. How about today? Today is the first time we find American intellectuals try to leave United States, looking for jobs, opportunities outside the United States. This never happened in the last 249 countries because they started from last year, 2025. Trump's policy undermined Americans' national comprehensive capability. Americans, that's my view, Americans' strength is based on one thing. I don't know if you agree with me. I guess you will agree with me. Based on what? Immigration policy. Their immigration policy for the last 200 years absorbed elites, talents from all over the other countries to the US. So today I watched a talk show, an Indian lady talking about very proud saying, look at also these American high-tech companies. The CEOs are all Indians. Well, the Indians serve American economy. Chinese scientists working in Americans' life. There's a very typical case last year. There's a physical competition, and the American team win. So what's the result, you know? This American anchor of TV anchor said, hey, the Americans so proud of that. American Chinese beating the China Chinese. The whole team of American team, they're Chinese. Some of them even have the Chinese passport. They just represent the US and to attend this competition. So you see, actually, American strength based on the whole human being's talent, not any individual. And then you see, you look at these scientists. Most of them come from Europe. I mean, during the Cold War, and most of the scientists, even the Einstein, come from Germany, right? So now when Trump closed the door and make the American scientists and journalists, the intellectuals and scientists concerned to leave that country, that's my view. He undermined the root or base of American strength. So that's why, and people talking a lot, and it's possible for China to catch up with the US. I'm very conservative. I don't think in 10 years, China can surpass the US. We can narrow the gap, but to surpass the United States, and this takes a longer time, not in our short. So Trump's policy definitely will make the international configuration change. On the one side is the strength. On the other side is a strategic relationship. Without Trump, you cannot expect so many European leaders visited China last year. Without Trump, Carney definitely want to visit China. The Canadian Prime Minister, right? I know he's coming to this country and talking about the middle power. he wants to unite all the middle powers together, Japan, Korea, and Japan, India, Germany, Australia. Let's work together, establish a new pole. That's his idea. I don't know whether he can success, but then one thing, Carney take a very, very tough stance against the Trump. Question comes. Do you think that there's any country have a better relationship with the United States than Canada before Trump? Even UK claim they have a special relationship with the United States, right? Okay. Do UK have that close relationship with the US as those between the US and the Canada? US and Canada's border almost no control. You can drive back and forth just with the driver's license. The trade between these two countries is so huge that they're always the largest trade partner. So how about now? The borders being controlled. And less people travel across the border. So that's what I mean. Trump do not only not only have an impact on the change of the power structure, but the material power structure also have an impact on the strategic relationship structure. This is also very important. Certainly, just now I already talked about normative order. I think this already briefing you. Here I will just summarize it. So this polarization and prioritization of the security over development become a serious issue. This is a very typical change for this normative caricature of a global order. Few years ago, I mean, before Trump came to power in 2017, before 2017, do any of you here, you heard major powers talking about economic security? Academia, we can find some writings with this concept, but definitely very few people heard about this. After Trump came to power, in the very first national security plan issued in 2018, clearly stated, economic security is an important part of American strategic interests. Wait a minute. Economic security gradually becomes a popular concept and adopted by almost every major powers, including China, and all have documents officially to define why we should protect national economic security. But by now, any government give a clear definition about the term, what is economic security. Do we know that? Do anyone know what is economic security? No. But this concept is very important, have a very strong impact on policy making for what? Reduce economic cooperation. EU passed a document, official regulation, and further economic security. Many items cannot import from the foreign outside EU. Must import from between the EU members. Some can import for only 30% of the total demand, not more than that. They developed a quota system for each country. How much foreign things you can import? So-called reduce economic integration, prevent the weaponization of economic interdependence. All of these concepts are very, very strong, sounds very convincing, sounds very necessary. Then, if you ask question, to protect what? What is economic security? Tell me. People say, okay, unemployment. We should protect our people's work. Question is coming. You have more foreign investment, you have more jobs, or you have less foreign investment, you have more jobs. So if you go to the detail, you find it's hardly to apply the concept of economic security to concrete situation. But now it's already become the universal norm. No one challenges this concept. Government making policy according to this concept. This is a very substantial change of the normative character of a current order from the previous order, so-called liberal order or globalization order. So I think that this situation will continue, getting worse. This kind of characteristic will become more and more obvious. Okay. Then this coming order. At the beginning, I already said that there will be an order without the leadership. And then there's something is changing. Not only without leadership, but then you find that the world center is shifting. The world center was shaped from Europe to Asia, to East Asia. And Europe, the economy, and very weak. And they cannot keep normal growth. And the total GDP and military capability of the Europe is cannot maintain as a whole. So this time when I did an interview with media, they told me, they asked the question, and Europeans complain about Trump to withdraw the security protection for them. Then my question to this journalist was, why we never heard European policymakers claim that, to say they have a responsibility for their own. European leaders concern security responsibility is not their work. It's not their responsibility. That's America's problem. America should undertake the responsibility for European security. European leaders never think about that. They said, no, that's not my job. Why? Why being national leaders never to protect their own people's security? They say, oh, that's an American thing. But if you look at the ancient countries, no matter big or small, all the government have the concept. I have the responsibility to protect my country by myself. Either you make allies with the US, or those countries make no allies with others, adopt the non-alliance principle. They use diplomacy to protect their security, right? And these the ASEAN countries, and many ASEAN countries that they don't make allies with anyone. They use neutrality to protect themselves. Europeans are very strange. They are very strange people. Once I talked with the Finland's diplomat, I asked him the question. I said, hey, the Finlandization is a very successful strategy. Protect your country's security for 7 decades, right? During the Cold War, this competition, all of this military, the rivalry between the Soviet Union and the US, and compose a threat to you. You use the Finlandization and to solve the problem, protect yourself. I said, why you give it up? You know what's the response from that diplomat? He told me that, because we have a national referendum. People said we should. I said, people said you should. You're a decision maker. You should undertake the responsibility for your country. You cannot let the people take the responsibility for that. You cannot say, hey, other people, hey, your responsibility for this country's national security, right? So you see, when those people and concerned that national security is not a decision maker's job, it's an American's job, they will adopt different strategy for their security policy, for their own security. So here we come to this issue. So this change means that, the shift from the Europe to Asia means the center of the world is shift to Asia. I know nowadays a lot of people talking about the future of emerging power like China and India and Brazil, and this so-called emerging economy. And this opportunity, but opportunity doesn't mean it guarantees your future. You have to work hard. You have to do your work. You have to take responsibility for yourself. Yesterday, President Saran used the Chinese word. He said the Chinese have a concept, it's called 吃苦, eat bitter things, eat bitter. And in Chinese, we have proverb also said, 不吃苦中苦，难为人上人. If you do not suffer the bitterness among the bitter, you can never be the best among the best. So what it means? It means that if you want to have a good future, you have to suffer first. That's a precondition. For those people say, I do not want to suffer anything. I only want to enjoy it. The same for national security. If you do not suffer, you do not spend the efforts on it, you do not use your energy to protect yourself, You cannot rely on others. International system is an anarchical system. Both Mr. Hammer and me, we share the assumption. This system requires self-protection. This nature of international system. No one can change. Okay, so along with this, and people worry about whether Trump will make the world back to the Cold War. My understanding is beyond Trump's capability to make the world back to Cold War. And Trump also do not have that will. Some US congressmen want to have a Cold War with China. Trump do not agree. And actually, I think Trump possibly is right. This digital age, you cannot repeat the history without digital technology. During the Cold War, the competition is mainly in the geospace. Today, or the next 10 years, will shift gradually majorly in the competition in cyberspace. During the Cold War, the core of the competition is ideological expansion. In the coming decade, the core of the competition is technology innovation. They're so different. How can you turn back to Cold War? The question is not whether we want to go to turn back to Cold War or not. The question is that possible to turn back to the Cold War? That's my view. Even some American congressmen want to go back to the Cold War because they have very solid evidence to support their arguments. That look at that, we win the Cold War, right? We have more experience to win that kind of a competition, but China do not have that kind of a competition. So if we fight a new Cold War, we have more chance than China to win. That's the base of their argument. The question is that the situation already changed. This is not a Cold War environment. They cannot go back. But there's something very sad. And personally, at least, I think the AI, the digital technology, is making the human beings a material civilization moving forward. We're using the smartphone, and we're going to from 4G, 5G, 6G, and very soon we use something much smarter than today's phone. And AI will make a lot of smart things, make our life easier, make our life change, and more enjoyment. But meanwhile, do human spirit civilization moving forward? Or the human beings' spirit civilization make a retrogress? You find that AI is capable of creating things. What does it mean? It means AI is very capable to make rumors. AI is very capable to make people believe rumors. AI is very capable to proliferate false information. And then what? And then the whole world, we live in the world, and everyone, you're surrounded by most of the false informations. So now the important capability for every individual, from the top policymaker to every individual college student, you have to develop your capability to tell what is the real true, what is false. That's not easy, very difficult. So you will find that we're in the world, and the human, there's more lies, more liars than the life, and you have a better life only in terms of materially. But doesn't mean spiritually. It doesn't mean we have a better material life, you will be happy. That's another story. So how then we come to the part about digital competition. So the digital competition includes all the things. I don't want to go to this part. This is the AI. What's the impact of the AI? Look this. That's the AI, and then AI make our production more efficient. then what? It intensifies global overproductivity. Do any of you know how many milk we produce every day? 8 billion kilograms. That means every individual, every day, you have to drink 1 kilogram milk. Otherwise, you have to take responsibility for the global overproductivity. Human beings can no longer consume what we produce. Clothes, food, cars, missiles, airplanes, everything. Human beings have no capability to consume what we produce. Meanwhile, AI produces more and more. We cannot consume. Not only the material things we cannot consume, but the service, lawyer, movie, series, and talk shows, and millions of programs produced, service, finance. We cannot consume this service. Then what will happen? This will definitely, sorry. Oh. I'm so sorry. I cannot get it back. Sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Just this. Okay, good, very good. So, because of global overproductivity, and it will make the unemployment worse and worse. We discuss about every government talking about how can we deal with this. The AI takes a lot of jobs, and there are less jobs of human beings. More and more factories. It's called a dark factory. The material come in, the products go out. No any single human being in the factory. No, just a bodyguard in the gate. They do not need workers. Everything's automatic. You see the robots on the Chinese gala, right? They even can perform the wushu and right, the kung fu, and make the kung fu performers kind of job. Now what happened? The happening is that for all government have a concern of unemployment, then the most easy way or the simple thinking how to protect our position or the jobs adopt protectionism. Close the gate, close the country. And people complain, hey, the immigrants take away our jobs. Okay, then we close the door. So in the future, it's very possible we see there's a more and more isolations between countries rather than integrations between countries for the unemployment. Actually, you find, I don't know about here, in China, you find that we have a lot of security people for railway, for subground, and for universities, for every building, for AKK. For what? And everyone knows that. Security people have nothing to do with security. Well, why we hire so many people to do the security? Well, you have to give people some job. Even everyone knows that job meaningless, but he has a job. He do something meaningless, at least it's not harmful, right? No one wants to benefit from it. They just only consider, hey, if not harmful, that's good, that's okay. People will do more and more useless things. Okay. For what? For social stability. This is very necessary, and this is not something just a minor and to the policymaker. This is crucial because unemployment directly related to what? Regime security. No government dare to ignore this problem. So then we have what? The regime security will the government makes decision. Close the country or open the country. There's two different strategies dealing with this issue. Some are concerned that I open the country, have more cooperation, attract more investment, then I create more jobs. The other countries said, no. We close the country, de-risking, and to maintain as much possible jobs for our local people as possible. People, this is totally decided by who? This is totally decided by leadership. It's not by geopolitics, not by structural factors, by leaders. Leaders have a choice. That's really up to them to decide which one I prefer. Okay, this shows that currently the AI has already become two clusters. One is China, and this is the trade among American companies. Actually, if you look into these factors, what's talking about AI? Chinese AI companies do more business than they do business with the foreign companies. American AI companies do more business among themselves rather than with other countries. The question is not for security. The question is not for the national what the so-called national interest. They never concern. National interest have nothing to do with business. For what? For reliability. They do more business with the company. They familiar each other. Because they use the same technology standard. They use the same technology standard. It's easier for them to cooperate with each other. The Chinese company same. So very possible, this is not what I said, this is said by the UN Secretary, Guterres. He said that in 2019, at the UN conference, at the opening speech, he said that the world possibly will divide it into two digital market and two sets of digital technology standards. You know, technology, anyone have knowledge about the computer, you know, when you use one type of the computer, you do not want to change. You do not change from the Macintosh to game down, right? Because different systems. Just like today we see the Boeing and the Airbus, the two systems. And even if fix any problem, the tools are different. So the more cooperation among the companies, they use the same technology standard, and they will have less cooperation, not less, and they will get together, the more cooperation and closer. So possibly in the future, we will see the world order in the cyberspace. Possibly we have two technology group like that. So finally, I will say, and we cannot go to the Cold War, and is that a good thing? I don't know. Because we already know the Cold War is not good. But I'm not so sure the coming order is better than Cold War. But we just hope. But anyhow, we know the Cold War order is really not as good as the liberal order after Cold War. So now we have this, we have come to this issue. What kind of order we are going to establish? This really depends on decision makers of these major powers. If the major powers, these leaders, do not work together, no one can provide a unilateral leadership. They do not provide joint leadership, and then we will see more and more segmentations of the world rather than cooperation of the world. Well, that's my brief presentation. Is that okay? Thank you very much.
May I now call upon Ambassador Shyam Saran, President IIC, to engage in conversation with Professor Xuetong. This will be followed by a Q&A session, if time permits, with questions open to the floor.
My friend, thank you very much for a very stimulating presentation that you have made. You have given us a very different perspective on how to look at the world order and the way it is sort of evolving in the future. In particular, the impact of technology on how the new world will be shaped. I think what you are pointing to is some kind of a fork in the road, where if there is, you may say leadership, I would say statesmanship. If you have leaders who take the right kind of decision and come together, you may find a different future.
Yes.
And if you do not have that kind of leadership, but a leadership which is very indrawn, which is even fearful, perhaps of the future, you might find a very different future. So let me ask you, where does China think of itself? Which side of the fork are you heading to?
Okay. And first, I have to clarify. My theory, moral realism, is not accepted by the Chinese government. This theory is not accepted by any decision makers in the world. That's just my personal view about what the policymakers should do. Okay. Second, according to my understanding, the Chinese government officially support economic globalization. Globalization has two parts: economic globalization and political globalization. Right? And economic globalization means more economic cooperation and increase economic integration and enlarge or supply chains. So this is what the Chinese government support. It's very clear. So China wants to cooperate with any major powers to work together, provide leadership for resume the economic globalization, because already there are too many broken of the supply chain. But in terms of political globalization, Chinese officials' policy is different. Chinese government support or advocate political diversity rather than unitary standard. Because after the Cold War, the political globalization means democratization. Democratization interpreted as what? Establish a Western political system. Use American liberalist ideology govern the country and the society. That's what Chinese government opposed. Politically, Chinese government said that every country can make their own decision for their own ideology and their own political system, a so-called the ruling model or the model of the governance. So I think here it's not that simple for what people think China's policy either support globalization or oppose globalization. No, economically and politically are different.
In terms of how China looks at the rest of the world as we are facing today,
Yeah.
You have, for example, argued that your theory of moral realism is that even if you have a certain stage of development, even if you have certain economic resources, military resources, technological resources, you have either a tax because of the lack of leadership, or you have a kind of a multiplier. Even if you don't have all those resources, if you have the right kind of leadership, it can act as a multiplier.
Yeah.
But even if you have those resources,
Yeah.
if you don't have the right kind of leadership, it can be a tax on the economy. So in that sense, I mean, it would appear to me that you are looking at the United States, where there is a tax. I mean,
I think the U.S. Leadership obviously will adopt a policy opposite from what I advocated. I strongly advocated the opening up policy. That means open your country to the international cooperation. And then my belief is that U.S. became the number one in the world because the U.S. usually more open than anyone else. Today, when U.S. no longer that open, when U.S. closer and more and more closed, and then their capability cannot grow that fast as others. At least today, we find that U.S. economy's growth rate is lower than China and India. And the popular thing is that Chinese government officially support this idea, will continue the opening up policy started from Deng Xiaoping in 1978. Very recent policy is that China adopted unilateral visa waiver, free visa for tourists. So I think this policy has carried out just 1 year, it started last year. Just 1 year, it's already become very positive. For instance, when China opened the door to tourists, you can come, you can see what I'm doing at home. There's less and less suspicion, and less and less hostile attitude toward China. Because they say, if a country opens itself, they certainly they do not do some bad thing. Otherwise, they will close the door to not want the other see, right? So now, from my understanding, any country, any major power, if they want to have the country have good image by others, they should open the country. If they want to have a good economic grow faster, they have to open the market.
Yeah, so this is a kind of issue in terms of, where a realist would say that it doesn't really matter, how you behave in the world. What matters is whether you have power or not.
Yeah.
That power is its own persuasion in a sense. It's when you don't have that kind of power, perhaps you need to win support from others. But if you have power, it has its own attractive power. So in that sense, I have seen in your own writing that you have said that it is no longer unipolar. After the Cold War has ended, you have United States of America, which is perhaps in some kind of a relative decline, but China is rising. So you have, in some of your writings, you have projected the coming bipolar world.
Yeah.
That maybe the kind of multipolarity that countries like India are hoping that it will arise. You seem to think that that is not such a possibility. It is more that you are probably going to see a very bipolar kind of a world, different from the Cold War, but nevertheless, there are two poles. And even in terms of technology, when you were talking about technology, you are pointing to the possibility of two different standards.
Yes.
Or two different kinds of ways of dealing with technology. So if you have that, kind of a competition between the US and China, and we are in fact moving towards a bipolar kind of world, different as I said from before, but bipolar nevertheless. What does it mean in terms of some of the things that you spoke about in terms of the future? Because what it seemed that you are looking at you said G0 world.
Yeah.
But
G0.
You seem to also suggest that maybe it is a bipolar world.
Yes.
So which is it that you are really looking at?
I think this is a very pragmatic question, very, very realistic. First, I think you already said that bipolar doesn't mean the Cold War. Cold War bipolar means the power structure. It doesn't mean the characteristic of the outer. There's two things. You can have the different characteristics of the outer with the same power structure. And also, you can have a different power structure, but with the same characteristic of the outer. So during the Cold War, we see that bipolar. That bipolar heavily based on military alliance. Today, China continue adhere to the principle of non-alignment. So there's no alliance. My understanding, Trump is undermining that so-called Western allies. And that's my personal prediction. By 2035, I think the term West will no longer used for political group. Right? Nowadays, we no longer use East to express any international political group. In 10 years, and people will not use West. Why? The reason, when you use the West, people will ask you, the West means Europe plus the US, or Europe only. And how about the US? How about Japan? How about South Korea? They're West or non-West. So the term will become unsuitable or unapplicable to explain the reality. So in the future, my understanding, the ideology will have a less and less impact on the international relationship. I do not mean that there are no impact, but the influence will decline. Second, is that you say if there's a bipolar, especially in terms of technology and China and the US, how the other countries to maintain this kind of balance, or how the other countries to compete with the US and China. First, I think that to compete, you need a base. And especially in AI period, and people talking about a lot of AI competition. I don't know whether you know what's the three basic elements for AI competition. Electricity, mineral, rare mineral, and talents. So here you find that if you cannot produce enough electricity, you cannot join the first class competition. By now, even the Europe, the 27 countries cannot produce enough electricity to do that. If we come to the India or the other countries, whether they can produce enough electricity for this AI competition, that depends on the scientific progress. Nowadays, I heard one thing. People try to invent hydrogen energy, not the solar, not the fossil oil, not nuclear. If scientists make achievements, scientific breakup, really can produce a hydrogen the power. Okay, what do you mean? It means the energy will priceless. And the hydrogen energy generated from water. So only when that happens, make the energy becomes available everywhere, then you compete. So nowadays, why I know China, we know you cannot rely on one type of energy. We develop a comprehensive solar, hydrogen, and coal, nuclear, and so you need the comprehensive power production capability to generate enough electricity.
Well, I mean, with regard to technology, we perhaps don't even know what is going to be
We
in the
don't
future.
know.
But currently, I would say, certainly when I was in China recently, very clearly the sense given was that, look, the only two countries which are anywhere near, the frontier technologies in AI are only China and the US. And US may be ahead in some ways, but China is catching up.
Reducing the gap.
And the rest are very, very far behind in a sense. Even if we don't project it as a kind of a bipolar world, our technology side certainly it is moving into a bipolar.
Yeah.
I mean the rest are quite far behind. The question is how China looks at the use of this power that it has with respect to interstate relations with the others. Now, in that context, you have in the past, and even in your later book, you have talked about this moral dimension of leadership, and you have gone back to the warring state period in China, and you have pointed out how even one of the smaller states, because of the fact that it had this moral kind of a leadership, it was able to overcome the even more powerful states. And you say that there is a lesson for us today from that history.
From the kind of
what you need is strategic credibility. Right, if I'm not mistaken.
Strategic credibility.
That if you have strategic credibility, that gives you a head start in terms of establishing a more global kind of leadership. If you don't have that strategic credibility, maybe you will fall behind. My sense is that I don't know whether that's the policy of the Chinese government, but my sense is that you hope that the Chinese government would perhaps display that strategic leadership and be able to even if it is still behind the United States, because of that strategic credibility, which Trump, as you have said, is perhaps losing. There is a chance for China to establish itself as the leading power in the world. Would that be correct?
Okay. I want to talk about two documents, respectively issued by Chinese government and American government. American government issued a document on AI policy. It's very clear. US try to establish a national platform for all disciplines in join have this cross-discipline cooperation, and both the state-owned institutions and private sectors, and work together and work on heavily based on fundamental research, scientific research. They hope they can make a new and a breakup and a new progress, and then what? Then they dominate the technology leading position or domination in the world. China adopted a different strategy. Also, I think these two documents issued only 20 days different, just 20 days. The Chinese government officially required Chinese enterprises and institutions, working units, 70% of them must use AI before 27, just 2 years. And 90% of them must use AI by the end of the 2030. So that means only 4 years. By 2035, every institution must use AI. What does it mean? It means that China adopt a different approach to develop AI. That means let everyone use AI. Through the use of AI to develop AI, this is so-called application research, different from fundamental research. I don't know which one is suitable for India, but then another difference, China encourage these companies to develop open source technology. Why? Because open source technology can be used by small enterprises. You can have the small enterprises, especially the private enterprise, they modernize themselves to update their capability. So that's what China concerns. For US, it's different. They concern the technology invention mainly by whom? By these technology giants. They don't think that this small business can make any help to make any contribution to the AI progress. So maybe Chinese government policy is too 群众运动 concern, like a very good Chinese communist rely on the people, right? So now this is, I don't know which strategy will win the competition, but it's a very different. In that case, my understanding, there will be more opportunity for Indian business enterprises and Chinese enterprises work together because they use open source AI. This open source AI can be used by everyone. So by this moment, at least Chinese government policy for guiding the AI technology, not that close like American government.
So last question, again, going back to your, your own writings, particularly because you have such a strong sense of history. Your first book that you had written about, Chinese traditional thinking. And you mentioned, do we follow Wang Tao or do we follow Wang Tao? Wang Tao meaning, the way of the king, enlightened king, and the Pa Tao being like a hegemon, who rules by power alone.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, as I mentioned earlier, you have suggested that in the longer run, it is the Wang Tao which is likely to be more successful than the Pa Tao or hegemon. And so it appears to me that even though you are looking at this kind of a bipolar kind of a situation developing, you see an opportunity for China going back to its own history and to see whether or not it can do a Wang Tao instead of a Pa Tao.
Yeah.
Would that be a correct interpretation of what you are trying to put across?
Okay, at least officially, and they are already talking more and more about morality. Officially, in the documents, they start to use the word morality. But you can find Trump's government document never touched the word, never used the word morality. But at least rhetorically, Chinese government talking more about morality. Why are they talking morality? Because according to my theory, I do not regard morality as a virtue. I regard morality as a power, it's an instrument. The government can use morality to get more support. Not support from your own people, and also you can get support from the neighbors, from the other international members. So here, from my understanding, Chinese government know that by now, we do not have that kind of a military relationship with the rest of the world like the United States. They have about 50 military allies. We don't. That's our shortcoming. How can we do? So that's my view. We need a morality more than US because we do not rely on the military alliance. We have to rely on we have to use some instrument to get more international support. So that's my view. I think China will become more open to cooperate with others and through the cooperation to get more international support.
Okay, we have time for 2 rounds of questions. I'll take 3 questions together and then perhaps you could...
Sure.
Yeah, yes please? Question please, no comment, and just identify yourself.
Yes. Good evening, Professor. My name is Bharat. I'm a PhD scholar at Center for East Asian Studies, Honorary University. My question is, in this emerging bipolarity between the United States and China, do you see any option in front of India except for lean towards United States of America in order to balance China, especially considering the fact that China has an all-weather partnership with Pakistan, whom, like you have classified in your interview with the New York Times in 2016 as China's only ally. Thank you.
I'm Rakesh Mohan, I'm an economist. I work for the government also in research institutions. You talked a lot, very admiringly, the United States having been strong because of their openness, particularly to immigration. And the question is that when it's clear that the Chinese population already started going down, and all demographic projections suggested that the pace of reduction will go faster, will China then be open to immigration, much more open immigration, like the US has been for 200 years?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation, and I also happen to be somebody who's been following your writings, I think, for last more than 2 decades. What I'm struck in this lecture, and even more in your writings, where you very clearly say that for the next 10 years, and 10 years is the maximum really that one can make a projection, that it will be what you have found a very sophisticated formulation of a non-block bipolarity, and it is absolutely clear that these two poles are going to be China and the United States. And to stretch it a little, because I want to just come to my question, to stretch it a little, if it is an economic heft which is to be seen, then perhaps EU will be the third member. If it is the military power, then perhaps it will be Russia. And the kind of roadmap that you see amongst the middle, and between these two poles, there is a large mass and a large space for middle powers, for major powers. But in your analysis, perhaps, I got the sense that in the developing world, you see Brazil in the next 10 years getting even more firmly aligned with China. Russia will be now far more a dependent ally and not a competitor. And European Union, or either the reality or your wish, is that it will be now neutralized. So where is India in all this, Professor Jant? If nothing else, and I will not get into the usual questions, my question is this.
Okay.
My question
I thought
is
it
this,
was
Chair.
something that you would
No,
have
no, no.
to not answer.
My question is this, that whether grudgingly or ungrudgingly, I think we must recognize that China is moving to the center of the global affairs. Even for that, don't you think that having good relations with India is something which will enhance your image? Thank you.
Okay.
I think I, generally speaking, have 4 questions. One is about in this bipolar world, if it's a bipolar world, what's the Indian's choice? And the other is about whether China will follow adopt America's immigration policy. The third is that, and whether this bipolar concept is accepted by the world. The last one is about EU, is that, and whether China and India will cooperate with each other and concerning the EU decline. Okay, first, I have to clarify this. By now, the concept of bipolarity only accepted by the media, academia. There's a book by the Sweden scholar published in 2019, Return Back of Bipolarity. And then in December of 2024, and IS, International Security, published an article, and Linda, and writing about the return of bipolarity. And after Trump used the term G2, and Foreign Affairs published the article, and multipolarity is the image. Okay, I will say, by now, only academia accepts the view the world is a bipolarity. No, any single government agree with this. All of the government are talking about multipolarization, including Chinese government, and including the US, your government, Russia, Japan, Europeans. All of the officials are talking about multipolarization. My understanding, multipolarization is a politically correctness. It's not a reality. So in public, if I have any official head on me, I dare not talk about bipolarity. Okay. So bipolarity for us is a reality, but of politically it's incorrect. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is that China has already adopted a new policy. It's called a K visa policy. The K visa targets that the technological talents. So they want to give them special treatment and make them easier to work to China. Okay, here's one thing. It's very difficult. We gave them permanent residency, but not give them citizenship. This is a problem. Do any of you know the difference between the permanent residency and the and the citizenship? In the US, the difference is a political difference, whether you have the power to vote, the right to vote or not. But then you have the same retirement, same Medicare, everything economically. But in China, both. The immigrants, except that they have no right to vote, they cannot have a retired pension. So this policy will attractive to young talents. But for the people above the middle age, they will be hesitant. They say, okay, I worked for 10 years, I will retire. What after retirement? What I can live on? So now even we have the K visa policy, it's not that attractive as Americans' visa policy. And so I think this is the main thing, because we, generally speaking, do not give foreign immigrants citizenship. The question is about the EU, and I know I make a comment on EU. First, because people talking about the EU, I think there's possibly you regard EU as same as India, China, and US. My understanding, EU is not a country. EU is an international organization. EU has no power. EU has no sovereignty. EU even do not have his phone number. Do EU have phone number code? They don't. No, I mean that EU cannot play the role as a pole in the world. So from my theory, I never consider EU as something. And just if we take EU as a unity, and how about the United Nations, UN? UN has the largest power of the world. They have 190 members, right? So here, I want to say the EU cannot play the role of the pole. EU even cannot protect its own security. India can do it, Russia can do it, China can do it, US can do it. They can protect themselves. EU has no way to protect itself. It relies on someone else. They even cannot rely on its members. Okay. The last question about the China-India relationship, I think this is very important. And just a week before, our Vice Foreign Minister visited your country and resumed the official high-level contact. And according to my understanding, and this morning I got some information, and it's very positive. And 100% sure, 2026, by the end of this year, you will see our bilateral relationship will be much better than last year. 100% sure. It's not because of anything structure, geopolitics, and Trump's policy change. It's because the leaders of these two nations decided to improve our relationship. It's because of the leadership, not because of anything else. So this kind of cooperation will start it immediately from the business, and then will gradually proliferate or spill beyond from the economy to some discipline. So the last thing I want to say is that the world is changing and very, very different and very strange. We never know what it will be exactly it will be. But we know it both challenge and opportunity. It's a very typical Chinese, right? We see the opportunity and the threat go together. So whether China and India will grab this opportunity to improve our relationship and play more roles in the world, that depends on our policymakers. Remember one thing, China and India put together will have more than almost 30 billion, 27 billion, right? 27 billion population. 2.7 billion, 2.7 population, right? More than a quarter, right? It's about 30%, almost 30% of the population. If this 30% of population work together, I ask you, who can become more powerful than this corporation? That's impossible, right?
Okay,
That's
quite encouraging. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Professor. My question is about a word that you haven't pronounced, which is currency. What is, in your view, the future of the global currency system? Because Trump seems to have a contradictory politic about it. On the one hand, he wants to weaken the dollar to lower the repayment of the interest on the $39 trillion of debt. But on the other, he's insisting that the dollar should remain the spine of the world financial system, and he will fight any country which tries to change that. And that's why he is almost daily threatening the BRICS, because of suspicions about trading in national currencies, alternatives to the current SWIFT system, etc. What is your view of the future of the system? Thank you.
Maybe it's
Thank you. I'm Pallavi. I teach in Ashoka University. My question was, I wonder if you could, if you might like to comment more on the role of territory in future conflicts in the world. Will the importance of territory diminish or not? That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
one more. Yes, please.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Professor, for such an enlightening lecture on this very important topic like globalization and deglobalization. You know, I see globalization, the modern globalization came with the promise that the benefits will populate. The organizations like GATT, WTO has mentioned that all the economies will benefit and the poor will benefit. But it didn't happen because of the political and businesses nexus. So somewhere I think that the global civil society's role was missing. Because of that, we see, leaders like Trump and everywhere, in the global order, right-wing people are getting more and more stronger because of that vacuum. And I think, how do you see the role of global civil society in this scenario? Had a, human subjective element, taking assistance of AI and bringing the world to a better future, not a retrogressive future.
Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Last question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Professor. I'm Dr. Geeta from JNU. So my question is that, okay, China may not be thinking about a bipolar world as of now, but it is definitely thinking about Asian leadership. So what is that China is looking in terms of global governance, issues and the universal values that it might, promote in terms of changing the world order? Thank you.
Okay, about the currency system, and my understanding that Trump's policy definitely will undermine US dollar, but US dollar system cannot collapse within the next 3 years. The reason is that, and the financial market heavily rely on the US dollar. And although there's a more trade use renminbi and the local money, but then the finance sector grows faster than trade, and especially AI. AI make the stock market growing even faster. So that's why, for me, I think even the US dollar becomes weak, US dollar may devalue, but the system will continue. Okay. Then second is technology, right? What was his question?
What is the role of territory? You mentioned that territory, your politics was about geography.
Oh, territory.
And now it is about cyberspace.
Yeah.
You're asking what is the role of territory?
Okay. Territory is naturally a piece of land, and people live on this land. Without the land, you don't have the country. So it's a precondition for a country to survive. But then the question, with the land, can you make your life better than the people have less land? You have vast of land. Do you mean that you will be richer than the people have a little land? Not necessarily. Russia has the largest land in the world. How about the Russian economy? How about Russian people's living standard? So land is really important in agricultural age, become less important in industrialized age. Now we come to the digital age. I do not mean that the land is no longer important. It's important, but the importance is declining rather than improving. Because the more and more wealth will generate from where? From technology, not from the land. It's called the digital economy. Digital economy already account for almost 50% of US GDP. It's over 40% of Chinese GDP. 100% sure, 10 years, these two countries, over 50% of their GDP rely on technology, not the land. The land still is important element for contribution to the country, but the importance is not that huge. So that's why we must, that's my view. That's why I think for the IR scholars, we should a little bit concerned, should we revise our view about geopolitics? Now there's two space, not only geospace, there's a cyberspace. And then the other is deglobalization. Well, there's a distinctions between anti-globalization, deglobalization, and counter-globalization. Anti-globalization means people hate globalization because of social polarization, right? The rich people and take away all the money, and poor people cannot survive. And this refers to whom? Refers to those people who have no power. You hate deglobalization? People hold demonstration. Can you change the policy? You cannot. You can only explain your dissatisfaction and complain at most in the newspaper. That's it. What do you mean deglobalization? Deglobalization means those people have power, hold the sovereignty, adopt a policy, reduce international cooperation, like started from the British policymakers. Make decision, withdraw from EU. People cannot make decision to withdraw EU. And the final decision is the decision makers, including the Congress. So deglobalization means a policy. Anti-globalization only means opinion. Then the last one is a counter-globalization. Counter-globalization means the trend. Just like the train aren't get the track. And if you do not change the track, it will continue, never stop, go further and further. So nowadays, counter-globalization as a trend is still very, very powerful. And it's still gaining momentum and rather than stop. So from my understanding, before we make the U-turn, we have to stop this trend. And then we possibly can resume globalization. And then the last thing is about this governance, global governance. I think the Chinese government policy is very, very different from the Trump. Trump policy is also very clear. Never participate in any globalization. Globalization had nothing to do with the Trump administration. That's some others business. U.S. will withdraw from anything of the globalization. But one thing possibly he cannot withdraw is the governance of the AI development. that is serious. If the AI lost the control, if AI, like some scientists said that it's a creature, not a tool, can you imagine that? A creature will do something beyond humans' control. So on this issue, I think Trump must, he has no other choice, still concern the global governance. Just like before, we do not allow people to clone the human being. You can clone monkey or anything, but not human being. Now this is something. Then the last, the globalization, for Chinese kind of global governance, China think is very serious. This is a very serious issue. Because a lot of the issue will threat not only to other countries, also to Chinese, to China. This kind of threat is a threat to whole human being. And the Chinese government cannot solve this problem, reduce the threat by itself. Without collective efforts, no one can reduce this kind of threat. So my understanding, global governance means to dealing with the issue, threat to whole human being. If it's only threat to few countries, you can never have a global governance.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Professor Yan, for being very patient, answering all the questions which have been thrown at you. And we have had a very, I think, a very stimulating evening today. So thank you once again for accepting our invitation and coming here. Come.
May I now call upon Director IIC Shrikant Srivastava to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are indeed very privileged to hear today a very eloquent, analytical, and informative talk by Professor Xuetong, a very distinguished professor of Tsinghua University and Honorary President of the Institute of International Relations. Professor Xuetong is a leading voice in the contemporary international relations theories and is a former Secretary General of World Peace Forum, the first high-level international security forum initiated by Chinese non-governmental institution. Widely recognized for advancing moral realism in global politics, Professor Yan's scholarship bridges classical political thought and modern power transition theory with particular emphasis on great power competition and global governance. He, in his talk, mentioned very clearly that the relationship between the nation is now going to shift more in the cyberspace than the geospace which exists today. In his talk on Trump's challenge to the global order, Professor Yan examined and explained as to how President Donald Trump reshaped the post-Cold War organization framework. He said that Trump's first term was as President of US marked a decisive shift from liberal globalization to an era of counter-globalization, which can be characterized economically by fragmented markets. According to Professor Yan, Trump's presidency declines to adhere to human rights norms and increasingly violates the sovereignty of nations through military means. Professor Yan fears that in the second term of Trump presidency, these structural shifts will further accelerate. He feels that the ongoing conflict in Europe, Middle East, and Africa are likely to continue, and at the same time, US-China rivalry is likely to intensify in East Asia. According to him, this rivalry will, however, remain within the framework of managed competition and may not disturb the regional peace. Professor Yan argued that coming global order will be, on behalf of India International Center, its Board of Trustees and members, I thank Professor Yan for accepting our invitation and delivering a very thought-provoking and engrossing talk at our center today. We look forward for more talks from him at IISc in future. I thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for your gracious presence and indulgence in today's program. Thank you very much.